men go through a lot, and they've been taught over decades, over centuries, that you're a man and somehow you're supposed to just be strong. And you shouldn't cry. You shouldn't have feelings. Just man up.
Yeah.
And that's not being a man. Being a man is being dependent on God first and those that God put into your life.
This book is called Men's Devotional for Dads.
I love this book.
I have a heart for men, being one myself. And the things that men go through.
Thank you for being a man.
Yeah, no problem. But the things that men go through and deal with, and you should, because just highlighted a devotion.
I would like to highlight
that is going to get right to what we're talking about here, but
devotion. Number 15, and we just kind of finished talking about that.
Yeah.
Sharing my burdens helps others.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to paraphrase everything, but basically you were talking about, as a man, being able to share your burdens with your wife. And I think Jamie was talking about how you're a great, you carry everybody's burdens, you're a great helper, you help them. But when it comes to you sharing your burdens, you held on to them. And I was like, this is Jalen. And when I would ask him, is anything wrong? He'd be like, no. But I'm like, your attitude.
Since I've been married, I've very much committed the sin of lying a whole lot. So she would always ask me, are you okay? And I would say yes, straight up lie. So I have to admit that.
I'm like, no, if you're not kissing me right, you're not holding my hair right.
Yeah.
Like, your whole mood changes. And when his mood changes, the whole house changes.
Yeah.
Like, I could just sense it. It's just thick. So I really love this because men go through a lot. And they've been taught over decades, over centuries, that you're a man and somehow you're supposed to just be strong. And you shouldn't cry. You shouldn't have feelings. Just man up.
Yeah.
And that's not being a man. Being a man is being dependent on God first and those that God put into your life, aka your wife. So I really, really love this one. It was one of my favorite ones. I mean, the whole book, I love the format of the book. It's an easy read, just like your previous one. And I just love this book. So I encourage every man to get this. Wife, get it for your husband. Get it for your brother. Here's a father. It's really awesome.
Yeah. So what prompted you all to write this book?
Oh, man. The men, I mean, the men are just not getting involved in marriages.
Right.
And every time we would do, because I will, do some women's retreats on occasion. And at the end, we'll promote like a couples retreat. Like 90% of the women are like, oh, my husband would never do that.
So my husband with experience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the men just aren't getting involved. And I think there's, a lot of getting into a marriage retreat, doing a marriage study, talking about marriage, that can bring out a level of inadequacy that men feel.
Yeah.
Because you know what? That's not anything men really have mastered. And a lot of that is because, like you're talking about, Cacie, that, they're taught, rub some dirt in it. That's fine, man up, get over it. But nobody's talking about the how to handle problems. And so when it comes to problems in my marriage, you're going to have some flaws pointed out in me. I'm going to look like I'm failing. I don't know what I'm doing. And that's like the number one fear many of them have, is that of failure or of inadequacy. And relationship stuff tends not to be, women are, we're the, emotional ones. We're the relationship ones. And men typically aren't in that category as much, but there's nothing biblical about that.
No.
Absolutely.
Nothing, I mean, no woman wants to be married to a man who's like weeping all the time. And we don't want that.
Listen, no.
But we also don't want to rub some dirt in it, either. Because if I'm addressing him and he tells me he enters, in our relationship with that rub some dirt in him mentality, That is apply.
I was just thinking, imagine telling your wife when she's, when something's bothering you, going, well, walk it off.
Yeah.
Is that?
Exactly.
Oh my God, you about to get slapped in the face with that.
And so really the call is to get, more men involved, because it's not an arena they step into
Yeah.
so well. And I don't think it's because men don't care.
Mm-mm.
I think it's the level of, you know what, I can show up here and be inadequate. And I don't want to do that. I think there's more fear than there is rebellion.
Yeah.
And so this book, it is and honestly, we know a lot of wives are buying it for their husbands.
Yeah.
And so we're going around,
Or they're bookmarking a certain,
Listen.
That's right.
I was like, this is Jalen.
Yeah, but it's a way because it's not as simple as, well, just suck it up or just do it. We want to break it down and go, here's how, here's why. And like you're saying, here's why this way is actually stronger. If you ask a husband, like you're talking about, sharing their burdens, if it's harder to hold them close to your chest or share them with your wife, which one requires more strength?
Yeah, exactly.
Sharing.
Yeah.
And so we often think, and even if you take that with crying for a man, what's harder to do? What requires more strength? Shedding some tears and saying, I'm actually hurting, or sucking it up and acting like you're not.
Or becoming a big jerk and
Right, because when they do that, because they're not designed to do that, because I talked to Chris about that, you're like, you can feel Jalen change what's going on. And we call that the big jerk in our house.
Yep.
Because I know he is the kindest, mild-mannered guy and just so much fun. But when he's withholding, he starts to get a little jerky. He's a little, and I'm like, all right, spill it. And I also tell him in that category, I'm like, like Chris was talking about, we're created to be their helpmates.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to help you with problems you're not telling me you even have?
Exactly.
How am I going to support you and encourage you and help lift you up if you're keeping everything held to your chest?
Well, and even just taking that verse in context, right? Bearing one another's burdens, which is not necessarily put into a place that says, oh, this is a marriage verse, but it is. It's a relational verse. It needs to start in the marriage. But so if by my withholding, then I'm preventing you from being able to do what God's asking you to do. For being able to fulfill your purpose and God's plan in your life.
Yeah. And so just as we're talking this out loud now, it's like, oh, wow, that is more strength to step up and handle things the right way. That's what this book is about. It's breaking it down, going, here's the perspective shift. Maybe what you've been taught about strength isn't correct. And your wife needs you, your children need you to step up and to lead and to become the best man that God has created you to be. And that's in relationships what brings that out. And so this book is really here's the step by step. Here's the real issues that men are dealing with. And because we both wrote it, he knows all the issues guys deal with, and I get to bring in a perspective like that. That says, oh, I need you to tell me because I want to love you there. I want to support you there. So I want to know, and that it's harmful when you withhold from me, because that's not God's design. So it's practical.
Yeah.
It's biblical, it's practical, and it's like, look, guys, you can do this. You are capable, and there's so much more when you step in to your marriage and take a proactive role. And so that's kind of what we're trying to change and influence.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be the hero of your family. Here's how you do it. You got to show up, and you got to show up in God's way. I mean, even 1 Timothy 3:5, it kind of refers to this concept of, look, you can't lead at the church. You can't lead in the world if you're not leading at home first. You got to step it up there. And a lot of guys don't really necessarily know how to do that.
Right.
Be a spiritual leader. Be a strong man. Be a great husband. Okay.
What does that look like?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
How? I'm not going to ask another guy. That's shows that I don't know what I'm doing, and they probably don't know what they're doing. Or there's that guy who he knows what he's doing and he's got this great presentation and all that. Well, I could never be him. The last thing I want to do is to say, hey, you're doing this great, and I'm really just, sucking up.
Yeah, and that's another reason. I'm glad you said that. That's another reason why we share. Because we're not, when somebody's just sharing their strengths and all that they're good at and succeeding at, that does not help change me. That intimidates me. That brings out a bad side of me that says, wow, I'm inadequate. I'm incapable. Look at all he's doing. Look at all they're doing. When we're just seeing like the social media pictures, look at their marriage. I don't go, wow, let me aspire to be like that. I go, wow, my marriage stinks in comparison to that. But if somebody steps up and says, man, I'm struggling here. I'm worried I'm going to fail at this. Now that's relatable.
Yeah.
Now that's the real Me Too, movement as far as like the vulnerability that breeds connection, that says, man, I feel like that too. And now when I say that encourages them.
Mm-hmm.
And instead the enemy's like, no, don't share that stuff. People will judge you. Yeah. Where that's the stuff we need to share. Now we need to be discerning. You don't blast social media with
right.
But at the very least with one another. We need to know that, you have a need for me, and we can share our weaknesses with one another, because vulnerability breeds connection faster than just about anything.
Absolutely. And there's nothing more the enemy wants than you to have shame and you to keep silent.
Yeah, I was just about to mention, this book helps remove the shame for men, to know that you're not alone. You're not the only one with these feelings and these thoughts. And it's good to see that as a man, you can overcome, and you don't have to be this strong, I gotta, lift the world by myself.
Yes.